Welcome to JGTCR, I'm Cope, and today we are looking at the new vehicles available after update 1.56 on GT7. Let's get into it. In this video we will be driving each of the vehicles in factory and modified trim at Tsukuba. We will also share our thoughts and opinions on each rendition, as well as a quick 5-minute tune sheet to stabilise each of the vehicles after they have been completely modified. For more in-depth setups for these vehicles and many more, keep an eye on the tuner series also available on this channel. So without further ado, let's tune our first vehicle, the BMW Z4 03. I'm just gonna go ahead and say it, this is the best vehicle of the update. Not only because it's the fastest vehicle, but also because it's the most well-rounded. This Z4 does drive rather well, but it is a delicate flower. It likes to be driven a particular way, and if we're not ready to comply, then it's not ready to drive. We must be very gentle and smooth with our inputs if we want to have any kind of hope of laying down a decent lap time. If we push too hard or not hard enough, this Z4 is going to take issue. The problem is, it's a very fine line between one and the other. If we approach turns a touch too quickly on entry, then it's understeer city for us. But when it comes to the throttle, there's only one way to do it: slowly. Too aggressive on throttle, it slides. Too early or late on throttle, it slides. Even a sideways glance at the throttle, it slides. And since we're piling on, if we turn too hard, you guessed it, it slides. The final piece of the puzzle is braking. And unfortunately the tail end of this Z4 seems to be rather light, so under heavy braking the tail end likes to step out. This becomes even more apparent when we release the brake and the weight shifts around. The fragility of this BMW is something we can get used to, but it could be a bit of a steep learning curve for some. However, once we do get accustomed to how this Z4 likes to be driven, the time falls away, and we certainly get that sense of achievement from conquering this challenge. Let's take a quick look at the tune. With all of the modifications done, there is much more power. The moodiness of the tail end we experienced in factory trim is still present. But the threshold of punishment this Z4 can take before it starts to drift has improved considerably. The same can be said about our braking issues. Still present, but much improved. The handling has improved significantly, and we can attack corners much more aggressively than we used to before. When we get the Z4 to hook, it rips through turns quite quickly. There is plenty of poke available, it's just getting it to stick that's the issue. But beware, because when it does stick, it goes pretty hard. That's what she said. On to the next one. Here we have the Mercedes-Benz Unimog. And it's so slow, it's painful to even think about driving it. So driving it around the Nürburgring for the tuner series is going to be torture. But I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Driving this Mercedes-Benz is very simple. Get it into 6th gear, which maxes out at 60 to 70 km per hour, and very slowly tackle each corner. There's no need to brake for turns, just turn in hard and we lose about 40% of our speed. At best, if we really do need to slow down, we can drop a gear and back off the throttle. When it comes to power and handling, there's not a lot to comment on, as it barely even registers on the scale. This really is a strange choice to add to GT7, but okay, cool I guess. Let's look at the tune sheet. When completely modified, this big nugget gets up and moves quite a bit faster than the factory trim model. With just under 8 times the power, the scenery tends to move past a touch quicker. And if we're being honest, the default settings weren't too bad to drive, but with our tune now dialed in, we can attack turns quite a bit harder. The handling is pretty decent, and if we're being fair, it turns quite well. The power actually registers on the scale now, but it is pretty weak outright. The fact is, this track is short and tight, and it does a great job of hiding how weak this vehicle is. The Unimog isn't really that fast, but it is much faster than it was before. And now, our final vehicle. The Peugeot 205 GTI is very tail happy for a front-engine, front-wheel drive car. This is very prominent under brakes, but it can also be a problem if we release the throttle mid-turn. As such, it's always best to maintain at least 1 to 2% throttle while cornering. When it comes to power, there is not a lot available, but for some reason it just loves frying the front tires. This means we are met with torque steer moments quite frequently when driving. We can tackle this issue with throttle modulation, it's just strange that we have to. When it comes to braking, they are very spongy, but they do get the job done. However, if we are too heavy-handed, it can get wobbly and cause slides. Let's jump across to the tune sheet. The prize for most improved goes to this Peugeot. It was a fairly sketchy and wobbly car in all conditions. But now it rips around the track confident in itself and its abilities. An important note is that we went with the medium turbo, as this provided more usable power that could be delivered to the road. The high turbo has a nasty spike in the power curve. While there is no doubt that we will have to use throttle modulation regardless of what turbo we use, the difference in drivability between the two turbos is night and day. After firming up the suspension, the handling is quite good. Naturally, we have issues with torque steer, but having good throttle modulation helps us through. And as far as braking goes, most of the wobbliness is gone, and what is left can be managed. Overall, this is a fairly decent entry to the GT7 front-wheel drive catalogue. So there you have it, a quick look at the new vehicles available on GT7 after update 1.56. A couple of decent entries and a question mark. But hey, new cars are new cars, no matter how you spin it. So step right up, grab your favourite, tune it, and take it for a spin. Because to quote Creed Braddon, if you can't Tsukuba, then what's this all been about? And that's all we have for you today, so until next time, keep racing!